If I could give a first-time teacher one piece of advice, this would be it. Hello, my name is Megan, and I have been an ESL teacher in Southern China for the past 10 years. And today I want to tell you my biggest help in being an ESL teacher. This is my biggest lesson planning secret, and it's actually not much of a secret. I want to tell you today about the ESA lesson planning system. Now, when I first became a teacher, I was completely overwhelmed. I had had a little bit of experience in lesson planning, but none in ESL lesson planning. And I remember when I first got my textbook, opening it up and feeling completely confused. How are you supposed to take this textbook with all of these activities and various things and turn it into a full-length lesson plan? Honestly, I struggled for years. You don't want to see those old lesson plans. But when I found the ESA lesson plan system, everything changed. So ESA stands for Engage, Study, Activate. And I use this for every single one of my lessons. First, engage. Now, this has a lot of different words to mean the same thing. For example, maybe you've heard warm up or icebreaker or introduction. That's basically the engage activity. The engage activity is just a way for students to get introduced to the topic, start doing something in the lesson. But the reason I love the word engage much more than like warm up or introduction is because it focuses on the students doing something right from the beginning. So let's take the topic food, for example. Let's say we're going to make a lesson plan about food. We need to have an engage activity that will start the students off doing something with the topic immediately. This could be something as simple as telling the students to turn to their partner and describe their favorite food to them, or share a favorite food from their hometown, or introduce a food that they like to eat on the weekends. It could be so simple, but we're just having the students start the class by using the language right from the beginning. I also really love this because it forces students to get into the habit and get into the understanding that they're going to use English once they step into my class. Once the bell rings, I'm not the one talking. They're the ones talking. They're the ones working together in English. They're the ones practicing their pronunciation, testing their vocabulary. One of my favorite engage activities, which I have many, they're on the blog if you want to check them all out. But one of my favorite engage activities is to turn it into a little bit of a game. So for the topic of food, maybe I'll put a picture onto the PowerPoint, maybe something that looks like this, and it has a picture of different produce, vegetables, and fruit. I tell students they have 1 minute to look at the picture, and afterwards, they have 1 minute to write down everything they remember from the picture. And I tell them that if they don't know the word in English, they can write down the word in their native language. Also, this is an activity that everyone can do. The higher level students are going to write down more vocabulary, but even the lowest level student, he's able to write down at least one of the things. He at least knows the word apple and he can write that one down. And something I try to do in my engage activities too is help students understand what they already know and what they don't know as well. So in this example, students are testing themselves on the vocabulary they already know. Maybe they already know strawberry, blueberry, apple, but then they're able to see things they don't know, maybe avocado, and they're able to get a little bit curious about the lesson because they've already stumbled upon things that they don't know how to say or words they don't know how to pronounce. So that's the engage activity. I usually try to make it fun, interesting, draw students into the lesson, and help them already start to understand what they know and what they don't know. The second part of an ESA lesson is study. And this is what we usually think about when we think about a teacher. This is the actual teaching portion. Students are generally a little bit more quiet. The teacher is talking because the teacher is explaining some grammar or explaining how to use vocabulary words, maybe modeling some pronunciation or giving example sentences. Now, depending on your topic, this could look totally different, but maybe for a food lesson, I would be teaching some vocabulary words about how to describe food. Maybe something like delicious or nutritious or oily, sweet, bitter, salty, those types of words. And usually teachers will hyperfixate on this study section, but generally in my ESA lessons, I try to keep this section a little bit short because as a foreign teacher, I want my students to be practicing more than they're listening to me input information. So we have ESA, engage, study, and we're at our last one already, which is activate. And here is where the students will actually be using what they learned. Now, for an ESA lesson, the A part, the activate part, should be the most significant. This is where I give students the majority of the time to actually practice. Maybe I ask students to pick a recipe and describe the recipe to their partner. Or perhaps they have to plan a dinner party and invite people over to their house, and they need to make a menu of food and drink that they are going to serve at their party. So they could use the vocabulary words that we learned together to make that menu or to describe their favorite kind of food. And that right there could be your lesson. ESA, as simple as that. And depending on the type of activities you choose, it could be very short or it could be a little bit longer. But actually, ESA doesn't stop there because you could also do ESA A or ESA SA and start adding on different activate activities or different study activities. For example, maybe if I had an ESA A lesson, I have my engage, I have my study, and I have the activate where students are creating a menu for their dinner party. A second activate activity that could immediately follow is asking students to make a shopping list of the ingredients that they're going to need to make those dishes. And of course, I would give them an example for this. So if they're going to make homemade pizza for their dinner party, what ingredients do you need to buy? Well, you need to buy flour or tomatoes, cheese, and it pushes students to find and discover new vocabulary words as well. Maybe I have an ESA SA, and here's where I add another study section and I add another activate section. So maybe I have my original ESA lesson, and in the first study, we talked about vocabulary words, and in the first activate, students were describing a dish. Well, now in our second study session, we are teaching some conversational phrases, how to order at a restaurant, how to ask for the bill, things like that. Then in the second activate, students have to make a conversation with one person being the waiter and one person being the customer at a restaurant. And so you can just keep tacking on these different activities and different tasks to make your lesson a little bit fuller or a little bit longer as well. And I know I chose food as a very simple topic, but I've used this for even more complex topics as well. And what I love about the ESA structure is that it makes it so simple to plan my lessons. Now that I've gotten into the habit of always using this, or almost always using this, I know I can just open up my textbook and I can plug in the different parts of the lesson. I can think of a creative and interesting engage activity. I can identify the things that I want to teach the students from the textbook for study. And then I can think of creative conversations or discussions or dialogues they can make for the activate. So this is my absolute favorite lesson plan. Hopefully you can try it for yourself and see how it goes. I love how flexible it is, but I love how easy it is to just plug things into the right equation. If you have any questions about ESA, you can definitely ask in the comments down below. I also have a blog post written all about this, and I go a little bit more in detail with more complex topics as well. And that's all for today. I'll see you next time.